2017-18 Qatar diplomatic crisis impact. Logistical implications. On June 6, 2017, Emirates Post of UAE halted postal services to Qatar. Nearly 80% of Qatar's food requirements come from Gulf Arab neighbors, with only 1% being produced domestically, and even imports from outside the Gulf states usually crossing the now closed land border with Saudi Arabia. Immediately after the cutting of relations, local reports indicated residents swarmed grocery stores in hopes of stockpiling food. Many food delivery trucks were idled along the Saudi-Qatari border. On June 8, 2017, Qatari Foreign Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani said, "We're not worried about a food shortage, we're fine. We can live forever like this, we are well prepared." Qatar has been in talks with both Turkey and Iran to secure supply of food. On June 11, 2017, Iran sent 4 cargo planes with fruit and vegetables and promised to continue the supply. Turkey has pledged food and water supplies to go along with their troop deployment at their Turkish military base in Qatar. As part of the Qatari government's response to lost food imports, it provided support to domestic agricultural company Baladna, which built a new dairy farm with imported cattle that was planned to produce enough milk to fulfill domestic demand for dairy products by June 2018. Air travel. All airlines based in these countries, including Emirates, suspended flights to and from Qatar. Gulf Air, Egypt Air, Fly Dubai, Air Arabia, Saudi Arabian Airlines and Etihad Airways suspended their flights to and from Qatar. Bahrain, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates are also banning overflights by aircraft registered in Qatar, A7. Instead, Qatar has rerouted flights to Africa and Europe via Iran, paying a hefty overflight fee for each such flight. Qatar Airways in response also suspended its flight operations to Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Egypt, and Bahrain. Pakistan International Airlines sent special flights to bring back over 200 Pakistani pilgrims stuck at Doha Airport. Over 550 Pakistani pilgrims in Doha were subsequently flown to Muscat. Private jet travel is also being impacted by the crisis. Business aviation officials said private flights between Qatar and the countries that cut diplomatic ties now need to make a technical stop in a third country. Aircraft registered in Qatar cannot fly to the countries that cut diplomatic ties and vice versa. While business jet operators can request a non-stop routing, 2 officials said requests so far have been turned down, necessitating a stop in a third country. Due to the blockade of Qatar Airways from the airspace of Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain and Egypt, Oman Air has taken up a significant role transporting travelers from and to Doha, mostly through Iranian airspace, while still allowing Qatar passport holders to book flights. The travel embargo has had a significant impact on foreign nationals living and working in Qatar, with about 100,000 Egyptians and citizens from other countries stranded there, unable to book direct flights or obtain travel documents for their return. Per request from Qatar, the blockade was under review by the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, a UN agency seeking consensus-based solutions for the resolution of the crisis. On July 31, 2017, the agency asserted its neutrality in the conflict and announced that Qatar Airways will have access to 3 contingency routes over international waters in early August based on a preliminary agreement reached with the Saudi Aviation Authority, GACA, early that month. The ICAO, based in Montreal, also reminded all member countries to comply with the 1944 Chicago Convention on International Civil Aviation and its addenda. Shipping. The United Arab Emirates banned Qatar-flagged ships from calling at Fujairah. It also banned vessels from Qatar from the port and vessels at the port from sailing directly to Qatar. Similar restrictions were put in place at Jebel Ali, which pre-boycott used to handle over 85% of shipborne cargo for Qatar. Bahrain, Egypt and Saudi Arabia also banned Qatar-flagged ships from their ports. On June 8, 2017, shipping giant Maersk was unable to transport in or out of Qatar entirely. Due to Qatar's shallow ports, large cargo ships are required to dock at Jebel Ali or other nearby ports where a feeder service transports the goods into Qatar. In response, Maersk and Swiss-based MSC vessels for Qatar were rerouted to Salalah and Sohar in Oman. Particularly smaller shipments of perishable and frozen foods have taken that route. On June 12, 2017, Chinese shipping company COSCO announced suspension of services to and from Qatar. Taiwan's Evergreen Marine and Hong Kong's Orient Overseas Container Line have already suspended services. Media ban. Hamad Saif al-Shamsi, the Attorney General of the United Arab Emirates, announced on 7 June that publishing expressions of sympathy towards Qatar through social media, or any type of written, visual or verbal form is considered illegal under UAE's Federal Penal Code and the Federal Law on Combating Information Technology Crimes. Violators of this offense face between 3 and 15 years imprisonment, a fine of up to 500,000 Emirati dirhams, $136,000, or both. Bahrain also issued a similar statement with a penalty up to 5 years imprisonment and a fine. Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Bahrain, and the UAE all blocked access to Qatari news agencies, including the controversial Qatar-based Al Jazeera. Saudi Arabia shut down the local office of Al Jazeera Media Network. The BBC speculated that changes to Al Jazeera would be a necessary part of any peaceful resolution. The Qatar-based BeIN sports channels were also initially banned in June in the UAE. Over a month later, the UAE restored normal access to BeIN sports channels via its local telecom providers. In Saudi Arabia, the channels remain banned, while a large-scale signal piracy operation known as Balkes made the channel's content available. Finances. The International Monetary Fund said it was too soon to judge the economic impact of the diplomatic crisis. Standard & Poor's downgraded Qatar's debt by one notch from AA to AA. Qatar's stock market dropped 7.3% on the first day of the crisis, and reached a 9.7% drop by 8 June. As per S&P Global Ratings, banks in Qatar are strong enough to survive a withdrawal of all Gulf country deposits. Energy. Qatar is a global leader in liquefied natural gas production. Despite the severing of ties, Qatari natural gas continues to flow to the UAE and Oman through Abu Dhabi-based Dolphin Energy's pipeline. The pipeline meets about 30 to 40% of UAE's energy needs. Shipping constraints from the crisis have also rerouted multiple shipments of oil and gas to and from the Gulf, which has caused reverberations in many local energy markets. On June 8, 2017, gas futures spiked nearly 4% in the United Kingdom, which had nearly a third of all its imported gas arriving from Qatar. A secondary effect of the dispute has been on worldwide supplies of helium, which is often extracted from natural gas. Qatar is the world's second largest supplier of helium, the U.S. ranks first. 23rd Gulf Cup. The 23rd Arabian Gulf Cup was scheduled to be hosted in Qatar. In November 2017, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain pulled out of the Gulf Cup due to the Qatar boycott. On December 7, 2017, it was announced that Kuwait will host the tournament after Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain all withdrew because of the diplomatic crisis. Qatari military relations. On June 7, 2017, the Turkish parliament passed, with 240 votes in favor and 98 against, a legislative act first drafted in May allowing Turkish troops to be deployed to a Turkish military base in Qatar. On June 13, 2017, during a speech, President of Turkey Recep Tayyip Erdogan condemned the boycott of Qatar as inhumane and against Islamic values and stated that victimizing Qatar through smear campaigns serves no purpose. On June 23, 2017, Turkey rejected demands to shut down its military base in Qatar. Qatar hosts about 10,000 U.S. troops at Al Udeid Air Base, which houses the forward operating base of United States Central Command that plays a commanding role in U.S. airstrikes in Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan. A Pentagon spokesperson claimed the diplomatic crisis would not affect the U.S. military posture in Qatar. On January 30, 2018, an inaugural United States-Qatar Strategic Dialogue meeting was held, co-chaired by U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, U.S. Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis, Qatari Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of State for Defense Affairs Khalid Al-Attiyah and Qatari Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani. The meeting expressed the need for an immediate resolution of the crisis which respects Qatar's sovereignty. In a joint declaration on security cooperation, the United States expressed its readiness to deter and confront any external threat to Qatar's territorial integrity. Qatar offered to help fund the expansion of facilities at U.S. bases in Qatar. On March 25, 2018, the United States Central Command, CENTCOM, officially denied rumors that the Incirlik Air Base in Turkey and the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar will be closed due to the ongoing regional conflict. In January 2018, Qatar's ambassador was in talks with Russia with the intent to purchase S-400 surface-to-air missiles. Both countries signed an agreement on military and technical cooperation in 2017. In May 2018, the French daily newspaper Le Monde reported that King Salman of Saudi Arabia would take military action if Qatar installed the Russian air defense system. However, a senior Russian official remarked the system would still be delivered even against the will of Saudi Arabia. The Saudis were themselves approaching Russia to improve economic and military ties in 2017, but talks relating to the arms deal were hindered by concerns the United States and Saudi Arabia had with regard to the Russian position towards Iran's military and strategic involvement in the Middle East. On September 18, 2018, Qatar finalized a deal to purchase Eurofighter Typhoon and BAE Hawk aircraft in a deal reported as being worth £5 billion.